everyone. This is Dr. Jennifer Harris with Whole Story Counseling, and this is our third supplemental video for our new series, Am I in Trouble? Discussing how our Enneagram type can help us understand a little bit more about how this Am I in Trouble story shows up for us. So going back to how I like to use Enneagram and attachment together, if the attachment style that we have is about the how we do relationships, Enneagram helps us understand the why, helps us understand the fundamental core stories of who we are, both our true self stories, who we have been created and divinely ordained to be, and also our false self stories, the way that our experience, our family of origin, our childhood have altered, misaligned, covered over that true self with a false story, with a false self mechanism that we learned to do relationships with instead. And all of these things, remember, it's not that they are bad, it's that they were protective. And so the more that we start to heal is about finding ways in which we have relational safety enough to start to release these protective mechanisms, which are by definition reactive and do not create the outcome we're looking for. So because these stories get wired into our bodies and our nervous system, we will often assume that the problem is that there's something wrong with me, that I'm in trouble just for being me. And the Enneagram helps us understand that there's a motive behind our behavior, and so that we can start to see what it is that we're most desiring, so that we can look at our motivation and unhook it, disconnect it from shame, unhook it from threat of a relational, emotional disconnection, unhook it from fear, and start to realign it by healing that story through body attunement, emotional attunement, and relational attunement, so that that misalignment, that misattunement and rupture in our family of origin can be repaired. So the Enneagram is a way of looking at human behavior in a way that I love so much, because you could spend your entire life becoming more of an Enneagram expert. And I like that so much because it has the ability to hold the nuance of human behavior. It's not a personality test where we get locked into a box of behavior. It's a way of looking at what it is that we most desire, how that got misaligned, and the path to healing. For me, it really helped me understand myself in a way that nothing else did. And especially because I teach Enneagram from looking at the core motivations rather than looking at behavior. Because it was very hard for me to land on my type, because I was looking so much more at behavior, which is how most of the tests do. They test on behaviors, and a lot of the types can have similar behaviors, but the reasons why are very different. So we're going to look at Enneagrams through core motivations and how that shows up in the Am I in Trouble narrative, and then how we try to escape using that same story. But as we all know, we're not going to heal if we use the same story that got us into this mess to try to get us out of this mess. So we're going to also have what I call a healing movement, a shift for each type. So we're going to have the core motivation, our core fear, the Am I in Trouble narrative, what I do when I feel this way, and how do I try to escape it? Again, all using that in trouble narrative. And then how can I start to shift that for each type? If you want to know more about the ins and outs of Enneagram, there are tons of resources online. My two favorite places are the Enneagram Institute, and they have a ton of free stuff on their website. The integrative9.com is really great. Um, there are some lovely podcasts available. Ian Morgan Crone has a great one. There's just a lot of information. A lot of people use it, and most of it is really good. So dive around. But as we go through the types, if you don't know your own type, just be listening to what pushes at you. Richard Rohr, who is a Enneagram teacher, will say that when we land on our type, it's this equal moment of, oh, I'm seen, and oh, I'm seen. It's this equal, like, yes, and no. So look for that as we go through if you're not familiar with your type. If you already are your type, then feel free to skip ahead till we get to your number and interact with the video that way. Okay, we're going to go in order of number, and remember there's no value to the number, even though we're used to number 1 being less than 9, or in golf, that's a good thing, but basketball, it's not. It doesn't matter. It's just a way of ordering the types around the circle. There is no better type to be. When you start to learn about Enneagram is that you are constantly growing, which as you grow, you start to encompass all of the types towards wholeness. But at our core, there's going to be something that is our special gift, our unique facet of divinity that created us that we are meant to live out into the world. And then that is where our wounding always happens. It takes that core, gorgeous facet of goodness and twists it into something not as good. And so healing becomes a reclamation of goodness. Okay, so here we go. Starting with number 1. Type 1 is called often the reformer, sometimes called the perfectionist. And the type 1 is characterized by a core motivation, core desire to be good, to be right in an ethical and moral sense. And so you can understand how, on the converse, their core fear is to be wrong. And this is not just about if I make a mistake, I'll be punished. But the in trouble narrative is that if I make a mistake, I am bad and will be punished. So these moral behaviors, which all types can have, are about approving of goodness. Because I learned that I wasn't good enough in my childhood family of origin. So my in trouble narrative starts with me making a mistake. And then when that happens, that fear takes over and starts to hijack your nervous system and kick into this trigger as I made a mistake being a personal moral failure. So let's walk through this. If I make a mistake, I'm bad and I'll be punished. And so I'm in trouble when I or my other people don't follow the rules. And ones can be really, really good at helping other people, and I use the word help kind of tongue in cheek, follow the rules. Because when they get triggered by people or themselves not following the rules, they get very critical. They get very hyper focused on this perfectionistic rigidity, self-control, ordering of things through following the rules. One will get triggered into the in trouble story if they are criticized for or witness somebody doing something wrong, which then triggers this I'm in trouble because I'm bad story. And then if I can get perfect enough, or I can get you to be perfect enough, I can make that story go away. So if the gift of a type 1 is to help people understand the rules of ethical and moral behavior, then the shift into healing is for that to not be identity. That following the rules doesn't make me as a person good or bad. The shift is from I must get it right to be good to goodness already exists in me because I have been created by a loving God who looked at me and said, "You are very good." And so that story of goodness got covered over with this I made mistakes, therefore I am bad. And so releasing that need to be perfect, to earn goodness, and to reclaim my inner goodness that already exists because God created me and it exists all around me. I can't create that. I choose to accept it and surrender to it and immerse myself in it and receive it. So the healing movement from I have to do it right to be good to I am good is about the releasing of the need to correct every wrong, to learn what grace really means, to start to test the boundaries a little bit about is this grace thing really what it says it is? To dip your toe into Sabbath, into profound moments of rest where I am not trying to fix everything around me in order to create a safe zone of perfection to be good. So the healing shift in this happens in our bodies. Because remember, all of these stories of am I in trouble is a story that our nervous system lives out in our body. So the anchor into the body is about letting your body soften, particularly one side with your jaw and your shoulders and probably your neck, this clench here, trying to control everything, reminding yourself that perfection is not the goal. Perfection is not the price of love, connection, belonging. And that grace is a radical way of reordering your world. And you'll find that when people start to have a true, immersed, whole self experience with grace, they will naturally more order their lives in a right, ethical, moral way than not. So the release within our body to soften and unclench into a moment of rest. Type 2, the helper. The helper's core motivation is to be needed and loved. And so on the flip side of that, their greatest fear is that they are unwanted. The in trouble story starts when that relational connection feels tenuous or disconnected, and the two will always assume it's because I haven't helped enough. And so the story becomes if I'm not helping, I'm selfish. If I'm not helping, I'm unlovable. If I'm not helping, I'm not needed. And so if I'm not being appreciated for all the ways I'm helping you, I'm in trouble. So if the narrative is if I'm not helping, I'm selfish, I'm unlovable, I'm not needed. So if I'm not feeling needed or appreciated, I'm in trouble. I've done something wrong. I haven't helped enough. So, for example, when a loved one or a friend seems like they're distancing themselves, they're not asking for help, a 2 will assume it's because they're unwanted. It's a rejection story. So, a trigger could be someone not asking for or rejecting their offer of help, or ignoring their efforts of help, which may or may not have been asked for. This is the challenge of the three. They like to really, really help, and it can be smothering. In my other video on attachment, I noted how a two is kind of the prototype of anxious attachment. They're going to help you till you are sick on it. It is the classic Greek mama who tries to feed you 62 sandwiches and 62 courses because they're just trying to feed you. They're trying to show love through the food, but at some point you got to stop eating because you're going to puke. So the story starts, I'm in trouble because I'm not helping, I'm not doing enough, I gotta find somebody, and then, oh my goodness, somebody might say no to their help, or not thank them for their help, or not notice their help. And so you try harder. You are constantly looking to overgive, overhelp, overserve, people pleasing, suppressing needs. This is kind of the classic picture of codependency and um, caretaking, enabling, especially if there is an addictive person in your family. A lot of twos have likely experienced some type of codependence or addiction in their family of origin. So they escape trouble by people pleasing and suppressing their own needs and think that that is love. So the healing for the two is to start to embrace and receive the gift that I am loved already. I have been created in love, by love, for love, capital L's, by a loving relational God. And that means I am beloved. So the shift is from I'm only loved if I'm needed, AKA doing stuff for you. The shift is to I am loved simply because I exist. So to be able to receive love without having to give it first. This is really hard for two, to let love come to them rather than moving towards it and chasing it constantly, and to let others care for you. So that shift starts to be about breathing back into your body, especially into your chest and belly, where is the kind of felt experience of relational connection and emotion. Start to bring the breath back into that in a deep and connected way to start to let your own needs come to the surface. Any kind of prayer or meditation or activity or hobby that you do just because you're worth it. That's a commercial from something that I can't remember what it is at the moment, but there's something about that you are doing this just for the pure pleasure that it brings to you. The pure enjoyment for enjoyment's sake, not as a quid pro quo. If I give to you, you have to give love to me. But to bring your breath back into your belly, to reconnect to the right to have feelings, to the right to have my needs met, and to release the way that that's been connected to I have to do for you first to earn any scraps left over. Releasing the pride that comes from a two, an unhealthy two, that I know what you need better than you know what you need for yourself. And to start to turn that skill, when it's healthy, it's gorgeous, back onto yourself to pursue your own heart in that way. Type 3. Type 3 is called the achiever. And naturally, thus, the core motivation for a three is to be valuable through success, for admiration, for people to look at them and say, wow, you're amazing. And that is measured most of the time for a three through success in a career, through money, through some worldly, tangible measuring stick. Thus, the flip side of for the three, the core fear is that they are a failure. And you can see the disconnect already, because if these things out here determine whether or not I'm valuable, then my successes, my achievements become my identity. So there's a very real need for threes to grow their own internal identity as I am valuable no matter what I do. I have value as a human being apart from my successes or failures. So the in trouble narrative starts when my success or my image is questioned. A boss or a peer or a relational partner giving critical feedback, even if it's couched in a way that is more kind than not, makes them fear this failure, and they feel like they're being exposed. They're a fraud, deeply shameful. And so the story is, if I fail or fall short, I will be exposed as failing and falling short. And so if my success or my image is questioned, such as not getting to a goal or being overlooked for a promotion or not being asked to offer my opinion on a project, those kinds of things, then I am going to hustle harder. I'm going to work harder to manage my image. I'm going to work harder to disconnect emotionally and do more. Moving into that classic way of saying, I'm going to move from being a human being to a human doing, because I have to prove through my accomplishments that I have value. So the shift, the healing movement in this I am in trouble story is that when it kicks in to start to shift from I'm in trouble because I failed towards I am worth more than my results. If I fail or fall short, I'm exposed. That shame that is so real for a three, that proverbial man behind the curtain, the emperor with no clothes, that kind of feeling. And so the shift to using your own really good work ethic towards finding finding yourself, turning your skill set to yourself, to engage yourself in a way that honors you for being you, regardless of outcome, regardless of measurable success or failure. So the shift from I am what I accomplish to I am more than my results is all about learning to engage in activities with no measurable outcome. Threes are really good at driving their emotions down. You can see here, if you listen to the attachment video, how this type could be very easily attached to an avoidant personality. It also can be the other way too. So don't think about it can't only be one or the other. But an avoidant three, for example, is going to shove their feelings down and just hustle, 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 do, do, do. An anxious three is going to go towards people and hustle at them to give them more lauding feedback and praise to build up their sense of ego. And so a healthy practice to start to heal is to learn to engage in activities that don't have a measurable outcome. Art, music, without competing. Taking piano lessons just for the heck of it. Walking in nature with no necessarily chosen destination. You're not going to suddenly start to take up hiking because you're going to beat your best time every day. Actually, you're going to try to lose your best time every day, get slower and slower, maybe. So the holistic anchor, meaning the embodied healing shift, is about slowing down, literally and figuratively, so that as you start to remember that you are in a body, you start to realize the body's presence as proof of your worth rather than your performance or success. So that in this moment, if your head is 36 feet and 36 decisions and 26 to-do list, the head of where you're sitting in the chair right now, come back, breathe, feel your body around you in this moment. Slow. For this moment, there's nowhere else to be. And your body's feeling around you. This is the proof that you are worthy. You were created, therefore worthy. Type 4, the individualist. Type 4's core motivation is to be authentic and significant. Uniqueness is the core motivation for the individualist, appropriately named. So you can see how the core fear would be the reverse, to be insignificant, to be like everybody else, to be ordinary. And so the trouble story gets shifted for a 4 when there are messages that come at them about them being misunderstood, that their uniqueness is not understood, that their significance isn't honored. So, for example, if a friend brushes off their feelings or doesn't want to keep talking about deep subjects, if they're trying to share their feelings and they're not mirrored back well, all of that starts to trigger this story that I'm ordinary and misunderstood, which means I don't matter. I'm insignificant. So I'm in trouble when I'm misunderstood, or worse yet, invisible. So if I am invisible, I have been left out. I have been emotionally disconnected or through misunderstanding. And so I get out of it by withdrawing even further. Sort of a you're gonna disconnect from me, well then I'm gonna disconnect from you even harder. So and 4s go into a very emotionally intense withdrawal. It's not a shutdown. It might get there, but it doesn't start there. Of a melancholy, deep introspection, emotionally intense withdrawal into self, to go kind of searching for those unique places of the 4 and to just reassure me that they're still there. I'm still my 4 self. All my very unique facets are still there. So the healing movement, the story of I'm ordinary, therefore I don't matter, and then that emotional disconnection into self that happens. The healing movement is the shift from my value lies in my uniqueness towards I am here and now, and however I show up in this moment, I belong. I am here. To learn to surrender the demand for authentic, unique significance, and to embrace the reality that no two people are the same. You are already unique. Something that you don't have to demand, it is something to receive. So the shift from I'm only valuable if I'm unique to I belong here as I am. And so the practice behind that is to learn to participate in shared communal experiences without the need to stand apart in uniqueness. It's okay to merge a little bit into community, to merge a little bit into the collective, because there's no way you will lose your uniqueness. In attachment theory, this is all about differentiation and the ability to be me within a we. And so a 4 is all about holding me. And healing comes as you start to ground into some safety, to merge a little bit into a we without that it won't overwhelm you. It won't take away your uniqueness. It won't change you in a way that you are no longer you. So in our body, it's all about staying grounded in this present moment through our senses rather than relying on that withdrawal into emotional intensity to prove my I am here-ness. So for just a second, feel about What's going on around you? What can I touch? I can touch my fingers. I can touch my hand, my shoulders. What do I hear? I hear a fan. I hear cars out there. What do I smell? What did I put in the diffuser? I can't remember, but it smells good. As a reminder to stay present with yourself in the face of others. That emotional intensity is not required to prove that you are here. And so that the emotional intensity can withdraw, can ease down a little bit so that more of you actually gets to come out and be shared and experienced by others in a way that doesn't overwhelm them. Type 5, the investigator, also sometimes called the thinker. So the core motivation for a 5 is to be competent, to be self-sufficient, and to be thought capable, particularly in ideas or tasks or knowledge. They like to learn a lot about something so they can become an expert in something. So their core fear, if their core desire is to be competent and capable, you can understand then the opposite of that, the core fear is about being depleted, meaning a 5 learned in relationships in their family of origin that their knowledge, their emotional resources, their time and attention and bandwidth, so to speak, was usurped by others, was only valued as kind of contributing to others' ability to cope. And so they get very aware of how much energy do I have and how much energy will this task take or will this relationship take? And if it will deplete me or I might fear it depletes me, that's what triggers my I'm in trouble story. If I don't have enough energy, which can be defined as emotional bandwidth, knowledge, time, um, and energy in terms of am I going to get tired? Can I walk 62 miles or not? So if I don't have the answers to those questions, I'm going to be taken over. And that makes me look foolish. That makes me look incapable. If I can't complete this task, then I will be thought to be incompetent. And so that starts to feel when the in trouble story kicks in, because I feel in trouble as a 5 when I am overwhelmed or drained. And then feeling pressure on top of that, for example, if 5s are feeling already exhausted and then there's social pressure to come out for dinner or to go to a family function or to go to your uncle's, niece's, cousin's, daughter's, child's birthday party, it triggers this fear and this story of I don't have enough to meet this task well, so I'm foolish, I'm an idiot, I will be seen as incompetent. And so the withdrawing happens to a detachment of emotion, sort of the opposite of the 4. The 4 withdraws into emotional intensity, and the 5 withdraws into emotional nothingness. And as I mentioned in the attachment video, the 5 is and avoidant attachment can often go hand in hand because I'm in trouble when I'm overwhelmed or drained. So I learned to be very clear about my energy levels, my resource levels in relationships. And so if someone invades my privacy, asks too many questions, asks too much social interaction for me, I have to withdraw to be safe. I have to detach emotionally and go into my head. That's why they're called a thinker. And so I'll start to do things that are intellectually driven to try to get that capability back under my hands and in an intellectual way rather than engaging with the reality that it's actually an emotional story that's present here. So the shift for a 5 from that trouble story, if I don't know enough, I'll be invaded, I'll be taken over, I'll be seen as foolish, to I can give and still have enough. If I'm exhausted, I can go to sleep and I will wake up tomorrow with some more resources. This is not a forever exhaustedness. This is not a forever depletion. So the movement from I have to conserve emotional resources, energy, time to feel safe, to I can share and still have enough for me because I get to choose rather than having it taken from me or invaded or overwhelmed. So the practice starts to be for a 5 to start to learn to express emotions or ideas before they're fully formed, meaning I've had time to research them for 6 months before I've had time to write a, 36 PowerPoint slide presentation on it to try to organize myself, to have the vulnerability to let somebody into my process. So the gift for a 5 is the expansion in my posture, meaning it's easy to get hunched in, especially if we're at the computer or learning or in a chair reading, so that I can open up my body to the possibility of trusted connection, not only with others, which is the scary part, but also within myself, that I don't have to turn off my emotions to be safe. I can learn to choose to balance that in a more healthy way. Type 6, the loyalist. For a type 6, the core motivation is to find security, to find certainty. And on the flip side, the core fear is about feeling unstable, feeling betrayed or discombobulated, that the floor that I'm standing on is trustworthy. You know how like when you go out to a body of water that's iced over, you kind of like tap your foot on the ice to see if it'll hold your weight. The 6 is constantly looking for that reassurance that this is trustworthy. I can put myself here and I will not be betrayed. So the trouble narrative, which is very heightened in a 6, usually if they're unhealthy, is that all around that trust and security and certainty. So if, for example, this could be as small as somebody changing plans to a business partner who wants to leave the business, to a trusted leader changing their position on a topic. They are all about connecting themselves to an idea or a set of values or a person in a way to like a trellis to my vine. And if that trellis then falls over by changing at all, it is a deeply troubling narrative for a 6 because when security is threatened, I'm in trouble. And that hypervigilance starts to kick in, looking for any way to find another trellis to leap onto. So if the trouble starts if I've trusted the wrong person or I haven't prepared enough for any potential outcomes. I haven't taken into account 36 variables of what could potentially go wrong. And if something goes wrong, it's therefore my fault because I should have seen it coming. So the loyalist is all about learning to navigate unexpected changes in a way that doesn't completely spiral them into, I'm in trouble, this was my fault. So loyalty in other people will be disrupted. People are imperfect. So when the hypervigilance kicks in, when the doubt spirals kick in, when this clinging to authority kicks in as a way to mitigate this I'm in trouble, the healing movement is about learning how to balance uncertainty and security together, to allow two things to be true at the same time that don't go together, so that I can be a little uncertain right now and still find security, so that an unexpected change doesn't send me into that spiral. It doesn't have me over clinging to authority, meaning a person or a set of ideals, in order to glom onto that trellis at all costs. I don't need to be loyal to a fault to be safe. So that shift from I need certainty to be safe to I can handle uncertainty and still feel secure, which is all about taking a moment to pause before we race towards reassurance to say what feels unstable and what also is stable right now. What is the story that's all unstable, and can I expand that viewpoint to find that there are things that I can trust right now? So it's about calming that hypervigilant fight or flight response that happens in the six to regulate your breath to a slow and steady rhythm, to be able to take an inhale slowly and exhale slowly, and to take a minute of pause before rushing to find your trellis. That might be having a trusted friend that you can call with a code word, or text with a certain code word that they send you back a prearranged, you're okay. It's okay. I'm here. You are safe enough where you are, and let's find out what just triggered you. It might be a way that you have built a gratitude journal so that you can flip back to see how people and God and even yourself have been reliable and trustworthy and faithful enough in the past to let that regulate your certainty back into that, so that you have the potential to see certainty in the midst of uncertainty. That you don't need outside perfection of reliability to be safe within yourself. 7, the enthusiast. So sevens are all about making lemonade out of life. And so their core motivation is to stay happy because their greatest fear is to be in pain. And if you've ever met a 7, they are lovely to be around. They are the life of every party. They are the ones that when you go to dinner, you feel like you've just been in the presence of joy, and trying to make plans with them ahead of time is completely impossible. They cannot slow down. They are the bee flitting from flower to flower. They are the ones that are always looking for the greener grass on the other side of 62 fences down the road. FOMO is real for a 7 because they believe if I slow down, I will feel pain. So any type of trouble stories for a 7 that will increase their activity is anything that feels like pain or boredom or stuck or stopping. So being forced, for example, to focus on a problem at work and actually bring it to conclusion will trigger this panicked, I'm in trouble, I'm going to feel pain story. And so they will have to go do something really fast to distract themselves. They are triggered, ironically, by you canceling plans on them, but they are very good at canceling plans if something else better comes along that they think will help them avoid pain more. They are kind of proverbialized by the whole Jack and Jill of all trades things. They know a lot about a lot of things, but they're not an expert in anything because they can't stay focused on one thing long enough to get good at it. So being forced, they feel, to actually bring through something to completion feels like you are forcing me to feel pain. And so they escape pain by moving away from it, by resisting it through distraction. They are continually going to always be the eternal optimists. They are the ones that are going to be constantly trying to reframe negativity into positivity. They're the ones that it's going to be really, really hard for them to look at any type of discomfort as an invitation to heal the pain that wants to come out to be healed. So the healing movement for a 7, when those stories of trouble, I have to escape, I have to escape, I have to move, 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 do. Remember, that's different than a 2, for example, because they're wanting to help others to get love. They're moving constantly to get love. 7s are going to be looking at moving just to avoid pain. Every life is always a party until it's over, and then I do not want any part of the cleanup. So I'm going to move in my healing journey from I must avoid pain to be okay to developing a tolerance to be present with your own discomfort and not run away from it. We all have pain. And so, can I allow space for sadness or grief or, heaven forbid, boredom to come in without immediately seeking instant gratification of distraction? This is, interestingly enough, a lot of people today have this kind of tendency wired into them because of technology, because of social media and the ability to distract so quickly. This escapism is so easy to reach towards. So all of us have this challenge within us. The question is, why are we doing it? And if you are at its core trying to avoid pain through escapism, then you might consider what it is to notice what's underneath that drive and how that shows up in your body when you start to pay attention. Sevens have a very hard time getting into their bodies because that is too much of a slow down. So, what is it to take a breath and be thankful for the breath I just took? And this one, and the next one. Type 8, the challenger. For the challenger, they are appropriately named that way because they are continually looking for a challenge for themselves and for others because their core motivation is to be strong. Thus, their core fear is about being vulnerable. And their in trouble narrative, they are very reactive to any type of vulnerability or weakness. That starts to trigger this I'm in trouble story with even just a drip. If I show weakness, I'm going to be controlled. I'm going to be out of control and someone else is going to be controlling me. If I show weakness or vulnerability, I'm going to get hurt because other people will have power over me. And so that in trouble story for an 8 is all about when they are feeling a whiff of being controlled or vulnerable. So having an 8 as a coworker can be rather challenging because being told what to do triggers this fear of being controlled. Experiencing any kind of weakness, for somebody to see their strength slip, or for them to fail at a committed project, or for them to not maintain emotional held togetherness, all of that will trigger feelings of vulnerability, which is unsafe. I'm going to be hurt. I'm going to get controlled. I'm going to be harmed. I'm going to be dominated. And so anyone challenging their own authorities or boundariedness, their selfhood, is going to then trigger them to try to take that back. So they will assert more. Their intensity will increase. They will push you away and do to you what you did to them, which is to control. Because they believe if I show weakness, I'm going to be hurt. So therefore, I must be strong to survive. I have to only rely on me, and I'm going to use my strength to keep you from being able to control me. So the healing movement for an 8 in this story of weakness equals harm is to start to shift from I can have to be strong to I can be strong and soft, meaning tender, meaning vulnerable, which is actually a very courageous choice. I can show that I have emotions, that you have the power to hurt me without it sending me into a grab for control, for power. I can be strong and tender. So the shift for an 8 is to let trusted people start to see glimpses of your vulnerability. Ironically, 8s are champions on behalf of other people, particularly disenfranchised, marginalized groups. They are the ones that are the champions for social justice and things like that because they know what it's like to feel that vulnerability. So, what is it for an 8 to let other people do that on your behalf? To let them see where your vulnerability is and then to receive care from them the way you would give care to others without defensiveness, without fear, without anger. And so that anger that lives in an 8 about likely a story in their childhood about how their power was taken from them, they compensated by grabbing power. And so in your body, that anger is all about a defensive clenching to hold off, to resist harm, and what it is to let that relax a little bit, particularly in the belly and the hands. There's be a lot of fist clenching for 8s. Letting that just relax a little bit and remembering that strength also is found in the choice to be vulnerable. There is nothing more courageous than to show up in vulnerability. As I mentioned in an earlier video, parents who share their own struggles with their kids or apologize to their kids when they've screwed up creates trust and safety rather than embarrassment or control or dominance. So, what is it to, in this moment, take just a little bit of that power, not as a grasping, but as a resting? Type 9, the peacemaker, aptly named because for a 9, their core motivation is to maintain peace. And so their greatest fear is about being in conflict. And type 9s are going to start to feel any type of I'm in trouble narrative if there's any kind of tension or conflict brewing, and particularly if they assert themselves in conflict or in a way that leads to conflict. So their in trouble story is that if I speak up, I'll create tension. And that is a problem. That is a big problem because then if I create tension, I'm going to be rejected. I'm going to be thrown out because I disrupted the peace. So any kind of conflict, any type of pressure to assert themselves, um, not just a regular conflict of like a heated argument, but also 9s really struggle with people demanding them to make a decision, to make a choice. If you've ever tried to have a friend who you want to ask them where they want to go for dinner and you offer, I don't care, 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 that's some 9 energy right there. Because feeling like they're being pushed to voice an opinion or to take someone's side is this, it's connected to this feeling of creating conflict, which disrupts the peace. And if I do that, then I am out. I am rejected. I am not part of the collective, which as a peacemaker, you need a collective to peace. And if I'm outed, I have nowhere to create that peace. So I will sacrifice myself on the altar of peace. I will numb it. I will enmesh with you. I will forget that I have an opinion at all. I will forget all the horrible things you said to me in order to keep peace. And so the healing movement for a 9 is moving towards what it is to be a peacemaker rather than a peacekeeper. So that role of differentiation in attachment theory, I get to be me and it doesn't disrupt we. Moving from my voice doesn't matter. If I speak up, I'll create tension and be rejected. To my presence and perspective matter. I get to have a seat at the table. I get to have a preference or an opinion, even if we don't end up doing that. So that the practice starts to be for a 9 to start speaking up, offering a preference, or an opinion in very small matters. Do you like Pepsi or Coke? You get to choose. Do you like red grapes or green grapes? You get to choose. Do you like onions or not onions on your hamburger? You get to choose. Do you want the house set at 68 degrees or are you freezing your butt off? Small things where you get to feel that challenge, that I'm in trouble story that starts to percolate if you voice your opinion, and learn to embody the space that you have already taken up by your very presence, and to be okay to take up that space. So nines, you'll notice in their body language, are always trying to get small. They're always trying to like just not get noticed. Stand up. Hold yourself up. Feel both of your feet on the ground underneath you. Feel the chair holding up your body and feel the air on your skin. I am here because I am taking up space, and I take up space because I am here. So to close, if attachment is the how, then Enneagram is the why, the belief that fuels these stories that live in our bodies. So what is your go-to strategy when you're in trouble, and what are you afraid will happen if you stop? What if your Enneagram type is the key, the door to open towards the path of healing for you? What if understanding these places where I live by fear or anger or shame are places where I can start to shift the narrative towards the gifts that my type has to offer, so that the one can start to live into their goodness, which inspires goodness in other people, not through legalistic perfection, but by recognizing the humanity in each other. For two, to understand that their gift about how to love starts and centered in their own belovedness, so that as I affirm my belovedness, I invite you to affirm yours. For the three, the invitation that you can be to others to inhabit their worthiness as a human being apart from the structures of success that seem to be necessary, that I am worthy because I am here. And I am, and you are too. And so for the four, the invitation about your emotional intensity and facility and dexterity with emotions is to invite other people to be in your moment with you, and to also learn those tools of emotional expression as well, not to overwhelm